welcome to Creative Block. I'm your host, Vee. Today, it's just me. We talk shop with other creatives in animation and comics about things like finding your artistic path or the process of making art while we doodle on Magma. We ask people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts. If you haven't yet, check out our Patreon and subscribe to our channel. Today with us, we have
Ah!
Breana Navickas.
It's Bee. It's Bee. Hi, it's Bree.
Bree, yeah. Can I read you this? Because I feel like I should have asked how you wanted to be introduced.
No, it's totally fine. Honestly, I live for the silly hiccups sometimes when it comes to podcasting. Yeah, hi, this is Breana Navickas or Breana Navickas, which is the more American way to say my last name. I got married, so people might be like, "Who's that?" This is also Bree Williams. And now people are probably going, "Oh, okay."
That's right. Oh my gosh. That is so interesting to bring that up because I've always wondered what people do for credits in animation. Like, how are you asking to be credited now for the shows that you're working on?
Right now I'm asking to be credited as Breana Navickas.
Mhm.
Although for a minute I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna be known professionally as Breana Williams or Bree Williams because that's what I've been doing."
Mhm.
I have a weird thing where I don't like it when other people call me Breana. Like,
Mm.
I don't know why. It just only my husband can do it, or my mom.
Oh, it's a serious name.
Yeah,
It's
because
like,
it's serious.
yeah.
But friends and colleagues, like, yeah, I can be introduced as Brianna, but then after that, it's like, keep calling me Brie, please. If somebody's like Brianna, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I'm like, I feel like T'Challa being like, we do not do that here. That's how I feel about it. I'm like, no, 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 no.
That's really funny. That makes a lot of sense.
And I don't know if it's like a gender thing because I'm non-binary. I use she they pronouns, so I don't know if it's like a Brianna feels super feminine. I don't know, but at the
Mm.
same time, it's like a weird. It's just a preference thing where I'm like, stop it. I'm cheese. You call me Brie. Don't spell it like Brie cheese, but I'm cheese.
That's really funny. I love that that's what it is. It's like, I did not think of the cheese, but now I'm like, I see it. I relate to the like name feeling too feminine. I also identify as non-binary and I like to be called V better than by my full name. So
Hell yeah,
yeah.
non-binary beings. Let's go.
Let's go. I like to start the podcast now with a question that is both like not exactly controversial, but is definitely an opinion question that also ties in to our guest's story. And the question is, art school, are you
Oh, it's
in?
doo doo.
Yeah. In
This is
favor
like
or no?
I think art school is doo doo, and I don't think. Okay, this this is like so intense. Okay, I will caveat and say that if you are an international student, even though the country is a hot mess right now, and you're coming over here to study, I understand that school is important and kind of like a non-negotiable when it comes to art school. So for international students, definitely understand you kind of have to do it, and it's rough. But if you are a U.S. citizen and you're just deciding, oh, should I go to art school? Don't do it. Don't do it.
Did you do it? Did you
I
go?
did it, and I would tell if I could go back in time and tell myself not to. I would. I wouldn't. I would not go. The I know this sounds really weird, but like I did make a lot of friends, and I do have like when I moved out to LA from Illinois, because I'm an Illinois transplant. I'm not from LA originally. I moved out here in 2016, and while I did have like I knew people from school that were already out here, and I made friends, which was a blessing. There's a part of my brain that's like, you're $48,000 in debt for friendship. And I know that that sounds so strange, and maybe it sounds
Mhm.
kind of cold to say, like, I love my friends. My friends
Mhm.
are a blessing. That I'm so thankful for the people that I met in college that are close to me now. But I feel like there's probably a timeline where maybe I could have met some of those people in different circumstances and not be in, like, financial distress, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because it's like art school is just, especially because I went to a private art college and I wasn't aware it was a private art college. I know that's very silly to think, like, what do you mean you didn't know it was a private art school? But like, I don't know. I just knew that Columbia College Chicago was art school that a lot of people were going to, and me being a dumb 18-year-old was like, yeah, I'll go there. And I didn't think about it till like a year in, where I'm like, why does the school cost so much? What like, why is my boyfriend, at the time now husband, paying $10,000 less than I am? And it's like, oh, because you're going to a private art school. And it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is crazy. It's good that you bring that up, that the private versus public, because I feel like we don't really get that highlighted enough on the podcast. And I think even if some of the most reputable art schools like Cal Arts or Wrangling are private, there's a lot of public schools where you can get an education for cheaper. But yeah, also to kind of like elaborate a little bit on the international student and the reason why it's important if you want a career in America to go to art school is because it's for the visa, eventually for the visa.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of my really dear friends, like, she's fine now, but she was a guest on your podcast before, about a year ago, I think. Umaima, like, she was kind of going through
Yeah.
it, like, with visa stuff, and it's not easy. And like, kind of through her, I learned a lot just about like how difficult that process that is for international students. And
Hmm.
yeah, this country does not make it easy for people who genuinely want to work here and stay here and who are talented. You know,
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
it's not fair. But kind of going back to like the art school thing, yeah, I genuinely, like, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't do it, and I would probably opt for trying to be more diligent and researching like workshops online and things like that, because I know that college ultimately is what you make it and you have to put in that effort. So it is a bit of my fault of probably not being as serious as I should have my first year and a half in college. But college also, like, what you learn is from your teachers, and if your teachers are people who are not actively in the industry or are stuck in a certain time period, that's all you're going to know. And when you actually get out in the real world, you're gonna probably have a bad time. And that's kind of what happened to me and a lot of people that went to my school, because as awesome as it was going to college and like meeting our colleagues, that like meeting, making friends and like meeting people that also like animation and want to do it, my teachers were kind of like, were older guys that were sort of from the old WB days that weren't active in the industry anymore. So like, I was getting the really bad advice that, of like, you just like, anime is nice, but you shouldn't be drawing that, you're not going to have a career in that. And lo and behold, every fucking thing is anime now.
Yes. That is so true. I feel like this is so for everybody listening right now who is in college and probably hasn't gone through, I mean, probably you guys have heard this a lot on the podcast, but for some reason there was such a in every art school too. Nobody liked anime. Like no teachers, I mean. And even sometimes between students, I don't know if you had that, Bree, but like sometimes even between students, there was a little bit of a judgment on anime.
Oh yeah, it's really funny. I didn't experience it so much in college, but in high school, I remember I was in art club and there was a girl who said that she really hated anime because of the way it looked, and she said it seemed too easy and not real art, and it made me feel bad because
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy.
I remember she said vividly, like, all the faces look the same, and all you have to do is just draw different hair on top of it, and that's not real art. And I don't know where she is today, but I hope you're living your best life, kid from from high school whose name I don't remember. I just remember you making me feel bad about drawing anime in art club in junior year of high school.
That is so interesting. So I wanted to kind of piggyback off when you were talking about, okay, so you had teachers in school that talked about like the olden days or like prepped you to what the industry would be in a way that didn't turn out to be what the industry was. And can you tell us like a couple examples of what that was?
So I graduated. I keep wanting to say high school. I graduated college in 2015, and a lot of colleges, a lot of art schools have like your senior thesis where you make a make a short film, or some of them have you making a short film like every year. I honestly kind of wish we had that, but my college only had it where your senior year was you either do a full production of like a short film with like a group of students, or you do a short film by yourself. And if you wanted if you were getting a BFA degree, you had to do both of those. If you were just getting a BA, which is what I did, you only had to do the team short film, but you could opt into doing the single short film if you wanted to. And my crazy ass wanted to do both, and I did not
Mhm.
finish my single short film. I made like a little mini trailer. It's on Vimeo. It's very bad. We were animating on paper using light boxes. Toon Boom Storyboard Pro, I think, was still like in its early days, and I didn't touch Storyboard Pro until my senior year of college, which honestly was not a good thing because Toon Boom Storyboard Pro was everywhere when I eventually started to like apply to jobs after I graduated and when I moved out here in 2016. But my knowledge of Storyboard Pro was just so minimal. Like I
Mhm.
was doing very crude storyboards in Paint Tool Sci
Mhm.
of all programs.
I haven't, it's funny, Paint Tool Sci, I haven't really heard of it a lot, but it's kind of coming back slightly. I hear of it every now and then. But yeah, definitely not industry standard.
No, definitely not. So like storyboard not being prepared fully with Storyboard Pro was something that was not really what I was expecting. It kind of bit me in the butt when I came out here initially, and I wish I had been more prepared for it coming from school. But that's why I took a bunch of workshops in like individual courses, either online or in person, like through CDA or
Mhm.
mentorships and whatnot to sort of help me get back on track.
It's good to hear CDA again. I feel like that's a class that keeps popping up a lot. So for people listening, definitely check out CDA for extra knowledge. How long would you say did it take you between graduating until finding your first job in animation?
I think it took about 2 years, honestly. So graduation was 2015, and
Mm-hmm.
then I didn't break into animation until summer of 2018. I got a job offer to be a production assistant
Mm-hmm.
a week or 2 weeks prior to my birthday.
Oh wow.
So it was a nice little like birthday gift.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I know that there's sort of like this desire to get a job right away, and I felt it, and I started to feel kind of like bad that I didn't get a job right away. But it wasn't until sort of like talking to other people who it took a while for them to break in that I started to feel a little bit better about like me sort of playing catch up in a way,
Mm-hmm.
because my work wasn't there, because storyboarding was the goal for me. That's what I wanted to do. I realized halfway through college that I was like, woo, I respect it, but I sure as hell do not want to animate. I other people can do that. I do not have the patience for that. Even though being an animator does make you a stronger board artist, I will stand by that because people I know who animate that also board, mad respect. Mad
Yeah,
respect.
I agree. I think it does help a lot, especially with eye trace going from a shot to another. That helps a lot. I think that's something that a lot of board artists who don't storyboard don't really think about, myself included. I had to have an animator friend, like one of those like animator board artist friends, tell me about eye trace. Uh,
Oh
uh,
geez, my ADHD brain. I actually do have ADHD for people saying that. I'm not making a joke. I have ADHD and I'm unmedicated, and I completely forgot what I was talking about.
So you were bringing up, you were talking about like storyboarding and like being a production assistant and like kind of like,
Oh,
yeah, your first
yes,
gig.
yes. The time, yeah. So yeah, the summer of 2018, that's when I became a PA and I pivoted like my brain. Storyboards was always the goal for me. But when I graduated school, because we didn't quite have I wasn't quite taught some of the standards of what was actually needed. um when I got out into the real world, my work was just not where it was supposed to be. And in a way I was kind of like demoralized a little bit
Mm-hmm.
as I was exiting college, because the head of the 2D department, I'll never forget that he basically told me that, because I went to his office kind of asking him, did he think that I had the skills, did I have the skills to be a storyboard artist? And he told me that if I wanted to be a board artist, I needed to be at the level of a prior student that he had
Mm,
if I wanted to get a job. And that made me feel really bad because the student that he had prior had already had education from a previous art school, was much older, and actively was like working at a studio at the time. Like he had moved out to
mm.
LA and he was like older and like basically had done like prior schooling and then came to our college for like extra work. And I was just like, you want me to be at this level right now? And I don't know. I feel like there's some truth to what he said, but at the same time, because I was green, I felt a little like looking back on it, I feel like if I were in his position, I probably wouldn't say you need to be at the level of like, I don't know, this S tier board artist. I would probably go over up the portfolio and say like, you need to push in these places because this is where it's lacking.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah, something where it's more about your work rather than comparing yourself to somebody else.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Uh,
because I'm still not at the level of that person. Like, I will full stop admit that, and I'm not really trying to be.
yeah.
Because that particular person, they're an action board artist and I am not.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah, action board artists are like a different, like completely different kind of a like style. I feel like action board. This is just me kind of going on my soapbox for a little bit, but I think action boards are probably the hardest kind of boards to do and require the like highest level of draftsmanship. But on top of that, it's a very competitive environment because a lot of people want to do action.
Oh yeah.
So they kind of like a lot. I've seen production kind of take advantage of that. That they know that they're kind of like the hot stuff, so they do. I've been surprised with the. I don't know if you've kind of seen that, Brie, but I've been surprised sometimes talking to people who are action board artists and that they're often not getting paid in my opinion, proportionately to the level of their skill.
Which is absolutely insane.
Hmm.
And again, another thing of like, that's probably not something that I'm able to do, but I have mad respect for the action Sakuga people. And yeah, sometimes they be out here like boarding the craziest stuff, and they should be compensated for it. Like they really
Hmm.
should.
For real. So once you heard that kind of feedback from the teacher, how did you kind of persevere, and what did you do during these 2 years to basically keep yourself like financially like stable, and also to keep networking and like looking for a way into the industry?
Basically, what I did was I kind of fell into graphic design. I
Mhm.
did not study graphic design at all. I had no interest in it. I just fell into it after I graduated college. But kind of backing up really quick, like that had hearing that like I needed to be at that level of like the S tier board artist right away. It did hurt a little bit, but it did sort of push me to try to keep practicing.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think it threw me off kilter a little bit,
Mm.
especially because I was trying to apply to like local animation studios and I wasn't hearing anything. And granted, Chicago is not a robust animation community by any means. Like there's a I don't even know if this place is around anymore. It's been years, but there was, maybe still is, a casino slot machine company that does
Mm.
animations there. And then there's like a marketing company that does like flash animations. Again, don't know if they're around. And then there's just a lot of like digital sort of like advertising agency places and whatnot that do CG and marketing and a lot of that. Like Chicago is a big marketing and graphic design house. A lot of
Mm.
commercial work. And there is one 2D animation house called Calabash Animation. They've done a lot of the ah geez, Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. The no, what
Mm.
that the bird that likes the Cocoa Puffs.
That's,
I
I will not remember his name, but let me Google it while
I
you're.
almost said Toucan Sam, but I'm like, that is a different bird and different sweet treat for children that is also blanking because I am not a child and I haven't had that in a long time.
It's so funny that they even have names, because for me they should just be, the toucan. Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, he's that red bird that goes is like, I need the Cocoa Puffs. He's a red bird, right? I don't
I
know.
he is. I have him because you know what's funny? In France, we don't have the same mascots for cereals. We have our own,
Oh,
yeah, so, and they have their own different names. So I mean, no, Kellogg's, we do have Kellogg's, and these are the same. Like Tony the Tiger is Tony the Tiger. But this bird, oh man, what's his
does he
name?
have a name? I'm trying. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it,
I
I don't
don't
know if in America we've ever known his name. I can only think of Toucan Sam.
I uh Sonny is his name.
Who is that? I've never heard of this man's name before. I feel like Kiki
The
Palmer. Who
mascot
is
of Cocoa Puff.
sorry to this man. I do. Who is this man? That's how I feel.
An orange cuckoo bird. Yeah, Sonny. Is that's so funny.
Okay.
I would never have guessed.
Well,
Cereal lore,
anyway,
everyone.
there we go. Serial lore, guys. But yeah, like that particular, like that stuff is like kind of what Calabash does, and
Mhm.
I tried to get in, couldn't. They take very few interns, and just sort of like having the mindset that a lot of college kids did when they graduated, like, oh damn, I'm not getting anything. I think it just kind of accompanied with my teacher telling me that sort of like was a combo of maybe I'm not actually good enough for animation, and I unintentionally, even though I was still kind of like practicing a little bit, I feel like it kind of slowed down probably what I could have been doing in the meantime, because for between graduation in 2015 to me moving out to LA in 2016, a lot happened. So like those feelings of like, maybe I'm not good enough, but I'm going to keep trying. And then I fell into graphic design after going to my college's career fair. This lady just sort of came up to me and said like, oh, you storyboard, we need that. And then I got called in for an interview to be an intern at this advertising agency over in Greektown in downtown Chicago. I don't think they're there anymore. But it's like the advertising agency is called Paco Collective. They are mostly a Latino market agency,
Mm-hmm.
and they wanted me to storyboard commercials for them. And I storyboarded one commercial. Well, I did beat commercial boards.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, wow, this is really fun. When's the next thing? And they're like, oh, we don't do them that often, but can you do graphic design work? Can you use Photoshop and Illustrator? And I'm like, no, yeah, sure. So I had to learn how to basically be a graphic designer on the fly doing digital design work. So like bus shelter ads, inserts for like companies for like their bills that they send to you in the mail. A lot of boring shit, but it at least paid my bills. But then also a really sad thing happened where my grandmother passed away at the top of 2016. And because like she kind of revealed to me that she had cancer a little bit before I graduated college. Actually, she was trying to let me focus on school and didn't tell me about it. And that also kind of like kept me from pursuing animation as much as I wanted to, because I was like, I don't want to leave. My granny's sick. I don't want to move out the house and be away from her. Just a lot going on. And then she ultimately passed. And I remember getting a phone call from a friend several months later saying like, hey, Bree, you know, like, when are you going to come out here to LA? You know, because this friend was a year ahead of me. And so he had already been in LA and working at Fox ADHD at the time. And I said, you know what? I don't know, because I was just feeling very lost because my granny had passed. I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep pursuing animation because, like, you know, graphic designers paying the bills. Maybe I can just settle. But after getting that phone call and realizing I didn't like how I responded, not knowing, it kind of pushed me to be like, you know what? I need to move. I need to finally pursue this. My granny was a big supporter of me wanting to do animation. And I don't know, I couldn't just stop. So ultimately, I moved out, lived with 3 other people and 2 cats in a 2-bedroom apartment. If you
Did somebody sleep on the couch? How did that work out? Or is it 2 beds in 1 bedroom?
2 beds and 1 bedroom, and it was the worst experience I ever had having roommates. If the people are listening to this, there's no you all know that was a mess. I love all of you, but geez, that was a mess because people fell out, gave each other the silent treatment for 6 months. And it was just a really rough time. I mean, I didn't give anybody silent treatment. I kind of had to be mom a little bit and just keep it pushing. I was also allergic to cats.
Oh, no way! What?
So I had to
That's
deal
crazy.
with that. But ultimately, like, you know, I ended up getting out of that living situation after a year and lived in 2 other places until I ultimately ended up moving in with my boyfriend because we were doing long distance.
Wow,
Yeah.
For how long?
For 2 years. My boyfriend,
Wow.
now husband, now father of my child.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah.
But yeah, before veering off, sorry, again, the ADHD brain is like bad. Yeah, and when I got here to LA, I just kind of did more graphic design work because it was something I was familiar with. It could pay the bills, it was fine. But because Los Angeles was so different and so new from Chicago, I was a little bit of a hermit my first 6 months out here. And that didn't really lend itself to sort of like the LA hustle culture, I guess. Especially being a Midwest kid, I'm a little bit more reserved, and I don't seem like I'm an introvert, but I am, and I'm very shy. Even though people say it doesn't seem like it, I'm a very shy person, and I kind of had to get over that. That was something that I learned pretty quickly, that it's like, you can't just apply to a job on a website. You have to you got to get over it. Like, you have to. And it's
Yeah.
really, really hard, but you are a name in a sea of 1,000 job applications. If you're
Mhm.
not talking to people, making genuine friendships, not like just using people to keep moving, but making like genuine friendships and connections, and showing people your work ethic and how serious you are with how much you really want to do this, then you're not gonna like, you're not really going to like break in a way into this industry. Like, people
Mhm.
have to know who you are. And that's something that I found out just sort of like genuinely talking to people. I would have coffee lunches with PAs, coordinators, and storyboard revisionists, storyboard artists that were PAs, because I realized I needed to open myself up to production work instead of just
Mhm.
doing go instead of just jumping straight into storyboards, because again, my work was not where it needed to be. I had to
Mhm.
sort of play catch up, since my schooling did not provide me the necessary tools that I needed when I actually started to apply for the workforce.
Mhm.
So that kind of goes back into like taking CDA classes, brainstorm, private mentorships with artists that like I found from like going to CTN when it wasn't
Mhm.
weird.
Yes, that fell off fast because I feel like CTN only had like how many good years? I feel like because I went there in 2015 and I feel like 3 years later it was done, right? It was only 3 good years. That was it.
I think so. Yeah, I remember going 2015, and then I think I went 2016, and then after that it felt like it was just too much.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And so when you got here in LA, were you like in these 2 years before you got your first gig, how did you move into LA like midway or were you just like kind of graduated from college? Comp well, no, because you said that you were working with that a company for a while.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I had graduated.
mhm,
So I graduated 2015, was working for a year at that advertising agency, and then I moved out tail end of 2016.
let's see.
So like September 2016.
Awesome. Around what time, like in your process of applying for jobs, meeting people, and creating your network, how long between that and you creating Black and Animated?
Oh, geez. So Black and Animated was kind of like accidental. I joke and say that like when I moved out here, I kind of accidentally became an activist without really meaning to. Because I was always pretty passionate about like representation, even if I
Mhm.
didn't quite have the words for it. Being black and going to a PWI, predominantly white institution,
Mhm.
since I was pretty young, actually. I was part of the television club in high school, and I was part of like Black Culture Club in high school, and I remember like making a documentary called Black at insert the name of my high school. You all don't need to know where I went to high school. And just kind of documenting like the black experience there, when only like there were 3% of us, I believe, was the official demo percentage at the time.
Mhm.
And when I moved out to LA, I remember like right before I moved to LA, I saw a Tumblr post of Floyd Norman, and I had never heard of him before. Now I see him like all the time. Dude's just like rolling around, just casually. It's like, oh hi, it's Floyd. He's very, very, very nice guy. Very, very cool dude. But that is an amazing persona style drawing of me. I really like that. Sorry, V, I just got distracted. I'm like, oh, that's really sick. That's awesome.
You could use it. It's yours.
Yeah, like BNA came from this desire. of wanting to sort of showcase more of that representation that I saw when I saw that Tumblr post of Floyd. Because when I saw that, it made me think more about, like, wait, are there any other Black people that are doing this? And I could not think of any people besides him and my former boss, Bruce W. Smith, creator of Proud Family. And I say former boss for people who are listening that may not know, I was a coordinator on the first 2 seasons of the reboot? Sequel? I don't know.
I know what you mean.
The new show, Proud
Yeah.
Family, Louder and Prouder. You think I would know the answer to that, but I don't, because Penny is still 14. You know what? Don't think too hard about it. And there's also an episode in the first season, or is it the second one? I don't know, the Peanut People one, where it, like, alludes to the original show being an alternate reality. So I'm just like, I have no idea. I don't know. And I'm not thinking about it that hard.
That's so funny that even a show like Proud Family had like a multiverse or whatever thing going on. Alternate reality. That's just so funny.
I guess so. But yeah, like, it seems as if oh no, my ADHD brain did it again.
Yeah, like people active in the Black community.
Yeah, so, like, I couldn't think of anybody besides him, but besides Floyd and Bruce, and it just sort of sat with me for a while, and it made me really anxious. Because being Black, especially at the time, there was a lot going on. There was the murder of Trayvon Martin. I remember, I believe that happened, like, right before I moved, and I know that like, shook me to my core. And just the way people responded to it, I was, like, disgusted. Even people I was close to, who are white, who have since grown and learned. But at the time, like, it was just very unsettling. And even more so with the orange fascist becoming the president for the first time.
I like that. That's a good way to call him without calling him.
Yeah. Which is, it's honestly, that it was pointed out to me by my co-host and co-founder of BNA, Waymond, that, like, BNA started the first time he was president. And now we're doing something different when he's president again, and we're like, oh, history repeats itself, oh boy. But with all of that going on, there was a lot of anxiety about, like, seeing Black people represented and whatnot. And I remember I met Waymond randomly at a mixer for it was a mixer at Cartoon Network, I believe, at a now this podcast is no longer active, the Animation Network podcast run by Chris Wimberly, who is now my supervisor on Sofia over at Disney TVA. And it was really funny because it was at a bar, and it was too loud there. Like, the mixer started at Cartoon Network, and then it went somewhere else, and it went to, like, a bar. The bar was giving me anxiety because it was too loud, and I was like, I don't want to be in here right now, so I left. And then I just saw, like, a group of Black people congregating outside, and I'm like, yo, this is where all the Black people are, what's going on? And it was Waymond, a guy named Jabril, who he does, like, independent animation. And I think there was someone else there who I cannot recall. I'm sorry if you're listening. I don't remember. I'm so sorry. My brain is years ago. And Waymond and I met up again at CTN several months later. Or is it a month later? I don't know. And we kind of were talking about how, like, oh yeah, I remember you. We were chatting. It was, like, nice to meet you. And he was saying, you know, you ever think about how, like, there's no Black people? And I'm like, yeah, me too. And then we started thinking about, like, and I was like, yeah, you know, I've always wanted to do, like, a podcast. And he's like, wait, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And because people think that we, like, started this intentionally, like, we knew each other. And I'm like, no, he's from the East Coast and I'm from the Midwest. We had never met before. We just, like, happened to meet and created something together. And that happened while I still wasn't in the industry at the time. Also, like, when we started doing the podcast initially, I was still working at an advertising agency, and Waymond, I believe, had just started working at Oddbot animation on
Mm-hmm.
Corn and Peg, I believe is the show. It's a preschool show. And through the podcast, we met so many wonderful people. We had a lot of really cool conversations. There are people who were like, yo, I was waiting for you to contact me because I love listening to you guys talk. And we were like, wait, you want to be on it?
That is so cool. And you know what's funny? That's so true. When you have a podcast, sometimes that does happen when people listen. And then I don't know if you relate to this, Bree, but I feel like doing a podcast sometimes you wonder if anybody's listening. You
Yes, absolutely. It's like, am I talking into a void? And it's
yeah.
like, sure, whatever. Like, I guess I will talk into a void because I'm talking with a friend or cool people. But then when
Hmm.
you actually get out into the wild and people are like, oh, your podcast changed my life, or oh, it motivated me to like look up this job or try to do
Hmm.
this, like that feels so good. And
Hmm.
that's kind of a lot of what the Black and Animated podcast did. Like, maybe she's listening, but good friend Lee Cree, she
Oh
was one of our first folks to send us fan mail.
yeah.
And she talked about how the podcast sort of like helped motivate her to finally look more into the artist program and not be afraid and like move out here and stuff like that. And now Lee is just
She's like a superstar.
amazing.
That's so crazy.
She
Wow.
is
Yeah.
great. And also like hearing from other people that like, oh man, like, I learned about I forget who it was, but someone told me they didn't know what a color designer was and they thought they just had to do character design work. But when they heard someone on the podcast talking about color design and whatnot, they were like, oh man, I really want to do that. Let me learn more about that.
Hmm.
So stuff like that is what makes me happy. It's like
Hmm.
people's learning, people's joys, their wins. Like that's what makes me happy about podcasting, especially podcasting so that Black artists who are trying to break into this industry can learn more about like what we do and how there is no like one path to doing it.
Yeah. Hmm.
I think that's so important. So, because we're constantly fed that you have to, you have to get a job right away, and it's like sometimes it takes a while, and that's okay. Like I didn't become a storyboard revisionist until 4 years into my career. I was in production management for 4 years, and I
Hmm.
am not ashamed of that.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
fact that I was in production management, people have told me that have hired me, made me a stronger candidate.
Oh, that's great, actually. That's good to hear because sometimes I hear different types of stories where sometimes they're like, well, we only want to hire you in production if you're going to stay in production because, we don't want to lose people that we train, da 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 da. Da. But I'm glad to hear that, like, it is also a strength in your application that kind of production and like how things work.
Yes, absolutely. Like that's kind of why I tell people to just if they want to do boards or if they want to do character design or just anything on the creative side of it, right? Or the art side rather, I'll say, because I feel like all of animation is creative.
Hmm.
If your skills are not quite there yet, there is nothing wrong with seeking out to breaking in production management. I know that there's sort of a stigma of using it as a stepping stone, and there's like nuance to it. I feel like it can be a stepping stone, but it has to be a stepping stone that you are treating with respect. I feel when you apply to be a PA but your ultimate goal is to do art, when you're applying for that job, I feel like people need to understand that you have to make sure that you are committing to that job.
Hmm.
And if you get it, you're not just like, all right, I'm going to go hang out with the designers now and not do what I've been asked to do. You have to
Hmm.
commit to the work that they hired you to do your best at it. But also, you can talk to the designers on the side or like while you're, helping your coordinator with a handout or whatnot.
Hmm.
Things like that, I think, go a long way in being genuine, not feeling as if I feel like if you look at production work as this lesser than thing, then that's a problem because production management is the backbone of any animated project.
Mhm.
It cannot function. Like, animated projects cannot function without production management. It just can't.
Yeah, 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 so true. Because you have so many people and so many things to like remember, think of, schedule. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's very true.
So I feel like I'm just yapping.
That's the whole reason why you're here is to for us to make you talk. I love to hear that story also because I want to kind of know how you transitioned from production into revisions. Was it within the same studio? Did you have to keep applying on the side, or were you waiting for your production to end until you looked into storyboards revisions?
I had to do the thing that's very annoying, but is very commonplace, of leaving and then coming back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because they can't poach you.
Yeah, and so I basically, so I mentioned that I was in production management for 4 years. So I started off at a studio called Wild Canary, and I was a PA, a design coordinator, a post coordinator, and a episodic coordinator, all within the span of 2 years there.
Mhm.
Small studio, you wear a lot of hats, things move very fast. I got promoted to a coordinator within like 6 months because the design coordinator went on maternity leave. So
Mhm.
it was just like, and you're off. And I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. And there were some opportunities at Wild Canary that were starting to present themselves, but ultimately, like, it didn't happen. I tried to see if I could get on a show that was just starting, but it didn't really work out. Well, as a revisionist.
Mhm.
And then I got I got wind of Proud Family starting up. And even though it would have been for a coordinator, I felt very strongly about wanting to be on that show because the legacy of it,
Mhm.
it really meant, it meant a lot to me as a child, and
Mhm.
being part of creating like the new guard for it, like I was very excited for the potential opportunity to do that. Also, this being at Wild Canary on that particular show, Mirror Detective, I kind of felt like I was due for a change because sometimes stuff is like really difficult and you feel like you can, maybe you want to change your work environment, right? So I was looking for a new opportunity anyway. So when Proud Family sort of presented itself, since the opportunity for this new show that was starting up at Wild Canary to do revisions didn't work out, I
Mhm.
decided, okay, maybe I can go be a coordinator for a little bit longer, especially since I've been talking to directors on my current show, showing them my work, and I kind of keep being told I'm almost there. I'm almost ready to maybe be a revisionist. I just need to
Mhm.
push a little bit more.
Mhm.
So I was content with that. And there's also a little bit of, I suppose I felt some reassurance going to Disney because Disney was never my goal. I never really wanted to. Full disclosure, I am a big Disney fan. I love Disney movies. I grew up with them. I love them very much. Disney as a corporation, we'll talk. But
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah.
but I'm a big fan of like these animated films because I grew up with them and being part of that. But even with all of that, like,
Mhm.
it wasn't really somewhere I was thinking about being when I wanted to break into animation. I really wanted to work at Titmouse.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because I feel like I mean, Disney's such a household name, and Titmouse for a long time I heard about that studio, but I didn't really know what they were making until very recently. I feel like Titmouse really became on the radar for me only like just in like 2015 around that time.
See, well, that was the thing that, like, around 2014 or 2013, 14, 15, that's when I started to be aware of what Titmouse was, and I was in college
Mm-hmm.
still,
Mm-hmm.
and because of shows like Motor City, like
Yeah.
Motor City was
Mm-hmm.
the big
Mm-hmm.
one. What was it?
Yeah.
Turbo Fast. But yeah, like Motor City, the Comedy Central show Moonbeam City, Turbo Fast, Megas XLR, Metalocalypse, all of the like kind
Mm-hmm.
of crazy wild shows. And again, I'm not very good at action. I'm trying to get better currently, but these were shows that appealed to me. Well, less so Metalocalypse. Metalocalypse made me really squeamish, and I still cannot watch it to this day.
That's
My
funny.
husband fucking loves it. I can't watch it, but I have mad respect for it.
It was a
um,
crazy show.
yeah, but because Titmouse was always doing kind of crazy shit, and it was always different. I mean,
Hmm.
even to this day, they're always doing crazy, weird shit that's different, and I love it. And it was a place that I always wanted to work, and Warner Brothers, because I'm a big DC fan,
Oh yeah.
and
Hmm.
what was it like? I think DC Superhero Girls was going,
That's right. Yes.
like the very beginnings of DC Superhero Girls was going on, and I really, really, really loved it. And I was just like, I need to be here. I want to be at one of these two places.
Hmm.
I like Scooby Doo. I want to do these things, but Disney came a knocking first, and I was really anxious about working at Disney. Honestly, I Disney always struck me. I don't know why, but Disney kind of struck me as a place that didn't really have too many people of color. And honestly, most studios,
Yeah.
being in this for a while, like there's really not the population of people of color as a whole is still not as high as it should be. And Disney kind of scared me a little bit because I don't know, that the fact that it was Disney was just kind of scary. And when I started to get to know this executive a lot better, named Jay Francis, his presence, and a former executive who is no longer there, Jermaine Turner, his presence and Jay Francis's presence, and then like getting to know that there were a couple of other Black executives, like Kim Bergland and whatnot, that were there, gave me a little bit more comfort, I suppose.
Hmm.
And also knowing that Proud Family being the show that it is, I think that's what gave me comfort in being able to go to Disney. Because, like, when you are someone who goes to like, a school that's mostly white students, and then you get into the working world and you're maybe one of two Black people, or one of two people of color in a room, it you feel it. And sometimes stuff gets said, sometimes you gotta hang your head down, sometimes you feel like you have to work twice as hard or defend yourself, and microaggressions happen.
Hmm.
But knowing that there were people at the top that looked like me, going to a show that had the representation of like what my family looked like or people I knew, it gave me a bit more comfort.
Hmm.
And that's why like going over to Disney was kind of a bit of a journey, I suppose.
Hmm.
And I don't even remember what the beginning of the question was, V. I'm so sorry. I like
That is.
tangented about like my journey to Disney, and oh wait, it was about doing boards, right?
Yep. Hmm. You got.
Sorry.
See.
See, I got back there.
You do. You do.
See, like, also being pregnant, I think messes. No, not I think. It does. It messes with your brain chemistry a little bit. So my memory is also really bad, accompanied with the unmedicated ADHD, man. Is rough.
Do you think
But
it's like, do you think it's the pregnancy or it's age? Because sometimes I think about that too. I know for a fact doing this podcast, and Clem, you're free to leave that in or not, but I used to be so sharp when I started this podcast, and now I'm like, mm-mm, I'm not there anymore. I'm not like there's I'm blanking way more than I used to. I forget things. I have a harder time following
It's
conversations.
it's probably all of the above. Age, pregnancy, being neurodivergent. I don't staring at computer screens all day for our
Yeah.
job. It's like all of that shit combined. Having a bad back. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. Um,
Man. Oh right, but yeah, like so like I went to Disney and then I did that for 2 years as a coordinator, and it was a really fun time. I really loved working on Proud Family. Stressful, but I mean, what job isn't stressful, right? And
yes. Yeah.
and like it was that was a really good crew of people. Not that like Mira wasn't or anything. It's just that like working on Proud Family felt kind of like being at the cookout, and I
Hmm.
really and I really liked that. Especially again, just sort of that comfort of being around a lot of people that looked like me
Hmm.
was really nice, and it was the first time I had experienced being in a work environment that was as diverse as that, and it was the first time I had seen a show be that diverse.
Hmm.
More started popping up later, of course, but for me that was my first experience with that, and I yeah, it was very different and really fun, and again stressful, but again fun.
Yeah.
Because like what job isn't? But the thing is that like while everyone was very aware that I wanted to do boards, an opportunity didn't really appear for me at Disney, because I kind of quickly learned that sometimes, even if it's not necessarily like people kind of look at you as the thing that you're doing, and it's hard to see beyond that sometimes.
Mm. Right. Hmm.
And that is something that I think needs to be sort of like communicated to young artists that are trying to break into this, especially if they're pivoting from different paths. Like, I know that I said that it's okay to start in production,
Hmm.
but you have to be careful, because sometimes you can run into this sort of you can run into this problem of like you're too good at your job,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
you might not get promoted, or you might be seen as just the thing that you are doing, you
That's
know?
very true. I think that actually happened very interestingly when the reason why I'm confirming this is because when I was on the show, the first show I episode directed on, I would do a little bit of storyboarding on top of directing, because I was down one person on my team. Like a lot of my artists had to help out on other episodes, so a lot of time it was me and one artist, and so I had to storyboard a lot to kind of catch up to the schedule. And when the showrunner saw my boards, he was like, "Oh, these are good. Oh man, we should have had you in boards, not directing." And I was like, it's something I was like, thank God I got the directing. But it's true, like when you're really good at one thing, people, because you're reliable and people know they can count on you to do the specific job, they,
Yeah.
they don't, they want to keep you there.
Yeah, and sometimes it's not necessarily like malicious or anything.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it's not. Sometimes like because you're doing that thing, they might, unless you keep reminding them that you are more than the thing that you are doing, then you're going to keep being in that thing that you are doing. And it's rough, especially like some studios are better about it than others, but for my situation in particular, I had to leave. I had to leave Disney. Like, it wasn't like bad blood or anything. It literally was like I got an offer to be a revisionist, and there wasn't really an opportunity for me to move on to revisions within the studio, because like even though I wanted to do it internally, a lot of those some there weren't that many jobs that were opening up, and if there were, I think those jobs are just going to like board artists that were rolling off elsewhere, that and, retaining like that retaining those people is important.
Right. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that's also like another thing that you're kind of up against sometimes, if that can kind of unintentionally keep you where you're at when you're trying to pivot from one particular part of the pipeline to another. Um,
Did you have to take a test to for revisions?
no, I for the job that I get, I did not have to take a test, but I have taken revisions test, and I don't think that we should be testing revisionists because the three revisionist tests that I have taken have been terrible and have been way too much, and
Wow.
they have all been reported to the testing committee.
Whoa, that's so crazy.
Like they're that bad. I'm not going to say what shows they were for,
Yeah. Was it
but
all the same studio or no?
it was different. It was different studios.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, but
Wow. Yeah.
but yeah, those I don't think we should be testing revisionists because or if we do, the test should not be insane like board a full on sequence and like
Yeah.
a
I've
bunch of
seen
other
those.
stuff.
I feel like as a revisionist, you should not be expected to reboard. That should be, in my opinion, that's my personal opinion. Obviously, like this can change from a show to another because each show is different. But in my personal opinion, I think it's either a director or the revisionist supervisor who should do that, meaning the reboarding and then handing it off to the revisionist.
No, absolutely. And I think like, I think a revisionist can do maybe boards but not like something crazy. Like
Mhm.
if they ask like, "Hey, I'd like to maybe try a thing." And if your director is like, "Sure, go for it," but not like crazy stay up till like 1 in the morning, stuff like that, doing overtime.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
like that's too much. That's too
Mhm.
much. But yeah, the long story short is that I did not have to test for the job that I got after Disney. It was pretty crazy. I had an interview for two different jobs while I was a production coordinator at Disney, and again, like my supervisors were aware that like I wanted to board, and they were very supportive of me. There just
Mhm.
wasn't really anything at Disney, and even then, like it was just hard to find somewhere to move to. And I had an interview for a job at Netflix, and that all not Netflix. Jeez, why did I say Netflix? I had an interview for a job at Atomic. That
Mhm.
didn't work out, but it seemed like a very cute show. And I even talked to our showrunner Bruce about it, and he was saying like, yeah, I mean like if you want to pursue boards, then you should be doing that. He was like, if you have to end up leaving, then go for it, because he said sometimes that's what you have to do.
Mhm.
And that kind of made me feel a lot better, and I didn't feel guilty, I
Mhm.
suppose.
Yeah.
And then I got a I got a request for, and I guess kind of like a call for artists to help staff a show, because with Black and Animated had like become more of an organization by this point.
Mhm.
I had we had like a database of Black artists, and a showrunner had reached out to me saying like, "Hey, I want to expand my hiring pool. Like I have people in mind, people have applied, but I also want to like make sure I'm looking like outside and like trying to just be a bit more able to like hire and like look for people that I may not know about." So I gave them like our database, but then I was also asked like, "Hey, do you still want a storyboard, by the way, by this showrunner?" And
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, I do. I had kind of a sort of, but not really, interview with the showrunner and with the storyboard supervisor on Mini Bowtoons, because Mini Bowtoons had been kicked from Disney TVA, like proper, over to Wild Canary, the third
Mhm.
party studio, because Wild Canary just does a lot of Disney Junior stuff for them. And the supervising director said that he looked at my portfolio and said I had a lot of potential, and if I was interested, maybe we could work something out. And I was like, what?
Oh,
I was like, what?
nice.
I felt like the cat going, huh?
I love that
huh?
gif.
Like that's what it felt like. I was like, what? I mean, I'd be like, sure. And that was also during kind of a rough time because I remember that Ron DeSantis was being a butt and the don't say gay
Yeah.
stuff was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I had gone to one of the employee sort of like after work like walkout. Well, it wasn't really a
Mm-hmm.
walkout. It was more just like
Like a
after,
march. Mm-hmm.
yeah, like some of the employees had got together at a park. And while I was there, I got an email saying, "Hey, we want to offer you a job as a storyboard revisionist on many Bowtoons." And I was like, "What?" And I started crying because I was like, "Is this really happening? This is crazy. This is absolutely bonkers."
Oh, that's so sweet though. It's like finally, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it was like the long-awaited development in the career. That's so nice though.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then in the interim before that, I did some very brief freelance, like a freelance test for
Hmm.
Jessica's Big Little World as a revisionist as well. I worked on two of the first episodes, Jessica's bedtime routine, and then one where Jessica goes to the playground.
Mm.
I think it's just called Jessica Goes to the Playground. Might be a different title, but there were two very cute episodes, and that was kind of the first time I had encountered sort of figuring out if I staying true to like a commitment, if you've already made one, because when it rains it pours.
Hmm.
And I had accepted many Bowtunes, and but then and many didn't start for like 3 or 4 months at the time.
Hmm.
And then right after that, like a week or two later, suddenly Jessica's Big Little World is in my inbox, in my email, and I'm like, what? I'm like, I'm sorry? Excuse me? And that was when I kind of, and while I was sort of doing like the freelance test, I kind of was thinking about how like I already accepted an offer somewhere else, and I don't want to like rescind that offer, but I feel more emotionally connected to Jessica because
Hmm.
little black girl and just how important that is. And like working on it made me teary eyed for the
Oh,
even for the brief period of time that I did. I was very emotional, and working with one of the storyboard supervisors, Carol Holiday, someone who I very much admire. She is an animation legend, black woman who's been in the industry for a very long time.
hmm.
That also struck me, and being able to work under somebody like her was amazing. Again, it was brief, but those were 2 weeks that I hold dear to me because again, it was brief, but I learned a lot under her leadership. And during that time, though, like I said, like it was the first time I experienced sort of like maintaining commitments and learning, like, you know what, I already did accept somewhere else, and I kind of need to hold to that. And
Hmm.
while folks on Jessica, like nobody was mad, and that was something that I was scared of too. I was
Hmm.
scared of upsetting people and letting people down, and I thought about it really hard. And I suppose in a weird way it was better that I did accept Minnie Mouse and go for it, because unfortunately Jessica, it was canceled, and I
Hmm.
wouldn't have had new work if I had stayed on it. But Minnie Mouse kept going.
Right. Hmm.
While I think it is awful
Hmm.
that Jessica no longer is like in production, because that show was something special. I firmly believe that WB, Warner Brothers Discovery,
Yeah,
WBD.
it's the merger pretty much because I think
Yeah,
Jessica was greenlit before the merger, or-
yeah,
and then Mergers always mess up everything because for people listening, I don't know if we've kind of covered that in previous episodes, but what happens is that when there's a merger, you all the execs change. And a lot of the time when you have new execs coming in, they just want to have their say. They want to be like, okay, well, I want the shows that I greenlit or like the shows that I made to be the ones that are currently made.
Right. And
So,
it's so sad to me that like that show, got done the way it got done dirty. Like it was
yes.
it, it was it was special. It was a special little show. And I honestly wish I had something like that when I was little.
Mhm.
But, needless to say, like again, it made me kind of learn, that people understand like that it is business, and I
Mhm.
didn't really need, and even though I was scared about like, oh, I'm gonna like people are gonna hate me if I tell them like, oh, I actually made a commitment, blah blah blah, but I really want to work on this, but I don't know what to do. And no, everyone was really understanding. Like it, you know,
Yeah, it's a really good thing that you bring that up because I do feel like this is something really scary to bring up. And something I will say that is just kind of like workplace kind of advice is that if you ever try to leave a production and they give you a hard time, it's kind of I wouldn't, kind of a red flag. I think that's definitely something like to keep in mind for the future. Like, not something to like do anything about, obviously, but like a normal crew, normal people, normal show, they'll be understanding, especially if it's a step like up or like some or like a commitment that you had made before. So,
right,
so it's great that you were able to experience like because it does happen sometimes. Sometimes people will be mad, but fortunately, I think that's not the case all of the time or most of the time.
right. I'm glad I had the experience to be on Jessica for a little bit.
Hmm.
But yeah, like so I ended up just like working on a Minnie Mouse, and it wasn't consecutive, but I worked on it for 2 seasons, and now I am currently on Sofia the First Royal Magic, which is a sequel series to the OG show, and I'm back at Disney proper. So
Nice.
I've been ping ponging between Wild Canary and Disney and Disney
No,
TVA, and I feel like that I have been yapping so long. I'm so sorry.
that's exactly what I wanted. That's what I want. I wanted a guest to like show because I'm here every episode. People are like, by now they know everything about me. So I want to be able to feature like new stories and new journeys. And I think what's really exciting too about your journey is that it also sounds like you being like creating Black and Animated and doing the podcast helped you really like network in a way that's and I kind of wanted to talk to you about that because I definitely think that for me doing creative block has helped me meet people that I never thought I would meet at all. And I think it's really fun, and it's kind of like personally for me my way of giving back to the animation community, trying to spread knowledge, awareness, and like just kind of like chronicle a little bit of what's going on in animation currently, you know? And
Yeah,
so I was kind of wondering, like, what was your approach when you were doing the podcast? What was that like? Yeah, tell me a little bit about like your experience doing that.
yeah. So like I agree with you wholeheartedly that podcasting, especially when it's in relation to our field, is sort of a way of networking, and you end up meeting all kinds of amazing people that you probably never would have met before. And it is 100% a way to give back, because I
Mhm.
mean, as I mentioned before, that was why like Waymond and I did it initially. We wanted to give back to the Black community. We
Mhm.
wanted to showcase that representation that us as Black people, we are here, we are thriving, and that we can do this as a job. And we wanted to make sure we were interviewing people at various like stages of their career, whether they were
Mhm.
green, mid-career, veterans that had been around for a while, and also just talking about different subjects in animation that that were related to Black culture, like
Mhm.
highlighting different Black shows or like artists, things like that. And giving back is so important because for us as creatives, networking is king, right? But it's
Uh-huh.
also like more than that. It's the relationships that you make. And Issa Rae said something really important that I think a lot of people should remember is that you network across, not just upwards.
Yep. Hmm.
And because those are going to be the people that will support you, those are going to be the people that are your friends, those are going to be the people that will help you, and you will be helping them. Like, you can talk to an executive, sure, but like, you should also be talking to that person that wants to break into design while you maybe want to break into boards, like, and maybe they get in and you guys are really good friends, and then all of a sudden there's a board position open. They're like, oh, my friend is really good. And again, it's not like you're using them, it's just that like kindness goes a long way.
Hmm. Hmm.
And people want to help each other. People want to see each other succeed. Yes, we are like competitors in a way, but we shouldn't be looking at each other like that, because
Hmm.
if you view everyone else as competition, you're going to feel like this sort of toxicness, I suppose. And being an artist is just going to be a series of like, oh, I have to be better than them, I have to be better than them. And it's like, you're not a fucking anime pro tag. Like, relax. like like so and so is not your Sasuke and you are not Naruto. Like, relax.
I
now maybe
love,
if you're
yeah.
now maybe if you're homies and you push each other, then sure, that's fine. But if you're just making somebody your Sasuke and they don't even know it, that's not cool. Don't do that.
That is so funny.
Yeah, like that's why I said, like, yeah, you can have like your friend and you guys are anime pro tag rivals consensually, mutually, like you are aware, you push each other, but it's not the tuning exam out there for like every we're not all in the tuning exams. I don't know, maybe some people think we are. I personally don't want to look at it like that because that shit is stressful.
It really is. I feel like it's interesting because I will say in animation generally, and that's true across here in the US and in France, that there are different circles of work, which in France would be like preschool, cartoony shows, and then action shows. And here in the US, you would have like the adult animation circle. You would have the action circle, preschool, 6 to 11, and then like maybe CG shows. Because I feel like CG shows are all like their own like different beasts. Some they kind of overlap with action shows, but I feel like it's usually kind of different crowds. And then feature. And in order to hop from one circle to another, it can be kind of hard. So I could see how there could be like a Sasuke Naruto energy going on if two people are friends, but they're like running in different circles and one is in the circle and the other wants or something. But I feel like overall, like there's not really, I've never really felt that there was competition within
hmm
a circle.
Yeah, I think we all just want each other to be okay, especially now with how the industry is.
Yeah. Hmm.
Where everybody's hungry for work, but at the same time, like, it's weird. I feel like there's a air of we're all hungry and want work, and there is an air of keeping some work closer to your chest.
Hmm.
Like, there are some, like, I'm not gonna lie, there are vibes of like people maybe are holding out that hand a little bit less than they used to because the amount of work is so minimal and everybody's trying to eat.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which like, I get, if you find out about something you're trying to like secure for yourself, like, I understand that. I'm not gonna hold that against anybody. But I do still think that, if like if you're in my position, for example, I guess like I'm actively working, I think it's really important to extend that hand out as much as you can for people,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
because none of us would be here without other people helping us.
Yeah.
And talking specifically about, like, being a Black person in animation, or being a Black person in a creative field, the room, there just aren't a lot of people that look like us at every level.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to see people that look like us at every level, but especially with the rising tide of, you know anti DEI and all that bullshit, right? Like,
Mm. Yeah.
like Black and brown people are being told we're not qualified for the work that we're doing, and that is dog shit. That's shitty. And that's kind of why, going back to it, like, Black and Animated was so important to me and Wayman, because we wanted to, again, make sure that we showed that, people that look like us are here at every level. Executives, like current series execs, even if there aren't a lot, there are some people here, and maybe it could open up the window, or the window, open up the door. I mean, I guess if you have a window, we'll open up the window. Maybe it could open up the door for someone to be like, "Oh, damn! I never thought about being a creative series executive before. That's pretty cool. I can't draw, but I like giving feedback on scripts. That's cool." Or, just different types of jobs. I think, I don't know, I like helping people, and I feel like giving back. I keep saying it, like I sound like a broken record, but
Mm-hmm.
giving back means a lot to me. Helping people means a lot to me. Helping Black artists means a lot to me. And while my level of, like, I guess, advocacy is not as intense as it once was over the past 5.5 years, I think it's been, since I started BNA with Waymond.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that advocacy isn't going to go away. It's just shifted into a different capacity, because
Mm-hmm.
I am 31 years old now. I am not in my mid-20s anymore. And I know that doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but being over 30, and being over 30, you start to kind of look at, like, what your goals are. Being married and being a parent, I had a baby 4 months ago, so that is
Mm-hmm.
also something that is important to consider when I think about, like, what is my future looking like, how much of myself can I continue to give, even though I want to keep giving,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I need to give a lot to myself and to my child
Mm-hmm.
and to my
Mm-hmm.
family a bit more, because something therapy is important, guys. I've kind of
Yes.
I've kind of worked through in therapy that I tend to not take care of myself as much as I should,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm so busy trying to take care of everyone else.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe that sounds kind of like weird, but taking care of yourself is something that I have been working on for a very long time, and I'm still not really where I need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I have a child, especially, I kind of need to, and I have been sort of reassessing and refocusing.
Mm-hmm.
Hence my my exit from Black and Animated, as people may or may not know. While Waymond and I are the co-founders of the organization, and we were leaders of it for him up until 2021. He stepped down, and then
Mm-hmm.
for me, I stepped down as of December 19th of
Mm-hmm.
last year. We are no longer involved with the organization. I fully left in December 19th of last year, but I stepped down as as the lead director
Mm-hmm.
around end of May last year. I was part of the advisory board for a while, but even then, like, I wasn't really active in the day to day. I was just kind of vibing in the background while new leadership was doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And like the goal was always to sort of take Black and Animated and pass it on to a new group of people, or like just new heads that could take it and keep it going. Because for a minute there, it could have ended, honestly. I was very burnt out. Wayman and I were both pretty burnt out, honestly, before he stepped down, because in 2020, when George Floyd was murdered, the industry suddenly remembered that Black people existed. Honestly, every industry everywhere remembered that Black people existed, and it's like, I mean, thank you, but it took somebody dying,
Yeah.
okay, and I say this a lot, not to sound like ungrateful, but it is very exhausting. I'm very thankful to the studios, wanting to partner with BNA and wanting to and lending their resources to our membership. I'm so thankful and so blessed for that. That I never could have seen that coming. However, I will be frank and say that because it took somebody's death for a lot of that to happen, it's always left a weird taste in my mouth.
Right.
Since
Yeah.
2020. And also kind of like how there were a lot of like promises that were made to Black and brown artists in 2020, and then
Didn't really follow through.
no, very not much follow through. Shows getting canceled left and right. Shows that coincidentally happened to be Black or brown focused or queer focused. Those are like being the first ones to be, on the chopping block to get cut. And now also like the wave of companies sort of folding to the current administration's very racist anti-DEI views. And all of that just feels icky,
Yeah, it's such a weird. What's so crazy is how fast all of it is happening.
Yeah.
It feels like overnight. It was like, okay, like new presidency, now everything is out the window that had been built for the past couple of years. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying in terms of like that is so
Yeah.
like what's the word? Like not confusing, but just like there's like a sense of hope, like I don't know if it's like hopelessness a little bit, or just kind of like you're being like like your hope is being challenged a bit by.
Yeah, like it's definitely hard to see the light in the dark sometimes, but I will say for Black people and for people of color as a whole in this country, like, we are resilient and we have been through hell and back. And kind of going through, people are going to keep making what they want to make. People are going to still keep being creative. And I think that's why, like, I'm tangenting a little bit, but I guess I'll finish my other point from before, is that like to say like studios kind of noticing BNA. Not that I'm ungrateful, it's just that, like, all of that happening felt weird, and then being sort of suddenly the face
Oh, right, yeah.
of everything, like studios asking us like, how do we do better, how do we do this, and it was very like, it was very stressful, kind of like burning the candle at both ends.
Right.
I love Lord of the Rings, and there's a phrase that Bilbo Baggins says that I think about all the damn time, where he tells Gandalf before he leaves that he feels like he's like butter, like a stretch of thin butter spread across too much bread. And that's kind of how we were feeling. And that's ultimately like why Wayman stepped down
Mm-hmm.
and why I kept going, but then I decided to sort of make a plan to like keep it going, but then find people to work with, find more people to work with, and then perhaps pass it on so it could keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And my exit wasn't exactly the way that I wanted it to be, unfortunately. The disagreements in leadership at the top and things like that. But um, I do hope that BNA is still a beacon for people. I do hope that it is still something that people look to, and I hope it's still helpful, even if me and Waymond aren't there. Like
You do have a new project coming up though.
I do.
Is
Uh,
it with Waymond or is it just you?
it is with Waymond, and
Ah, they're back.
we're back. We're back. A dinosaur story, and honestly, that kind of goes into. I think I said earlier that like reassessing and like how
Mhm.
much I can give, and like my advocacy not being necessarily the same, but being kind of put in a different way, and. For the past 2 or so years, Wayman and I have been kind of teetering with the idea of like, should we bring the podcast back? Maybe. I don't know. And we can't really call it Black and Animated anymore. But we decided to bring back our podcast, and our first episode actually premiered today, episode 0. It's called Keeping You Animated, and Keeping You Animated is sort of like a twist on our old podcast, where we're not going to have as many guests, because kind of scheduling guests is sort of what burnt us out a little bit too, doing
Yes.
doing the org and also like so many guests all the time. It'll
Mm-hmm.
be more of us just talking, but the point of Keeping You Animated is to just sort of be a bit of, I guess, hope, I suppose. Like, you talked about that sort of that icky hopeless feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess like what we want to do with Keeping You Animated is sort of have a bit of to give a bit of hope to people, to Black artists that are
Mm-hmm.
interested in animation or want to do animation as a career, again, with our podcast. And we talk about like pop culture and like animation related things, and how it keeps us going. And that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of where the title comes from, Keeping You Animated. What keeps us animated, what keeps us going, what things are we interested in. And we'll be talking to like Black professionals in animation and Black people that work in creative industries, and learning more about their careers, their work, and just sort of like what creative things are keeping them motivated, or what creative projects are they working on.
That's
Stuff like,
really cool. And
yeah.
how do you imagine, and that's just me kind of like excited to talk to another podcast host. How do you imagine kind of scheduling guests versus episodes where it's just you and Wayman? Like, do you guys have a little bit of an idea what the ratio would be between or are you just kind of playing it by ear and that way just putting less work on yourself in that way.
We're kind of playing it by ear right now, mostly because we're still trying to test the waters. All we know is that we want to keep talking. We want to keep talking about animation. We want to be there for people, even in the small way, like just a little bit of entertainment in all this chaos. And I know that it will be significantly less guests just because of our time commitment. Although our plan is to, it's kind of like we're doing Black and Animated again ultimately, but on a smaller scale,
Mm-hmm.
because our capacity to do stuff has shifted significantly. So we'll have like our podcast episodes, and we're gonna have like a more chill schedule. Our Black Animated podcast episodes were coming, they used to come out like every 2 weeks, or no, bi-weekly, I believe it was.
Oh, do you mean twice a week or
Oh no, not twice a week.
twice a
Sorry,
month? Twice a
twice a
month.
month. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's something that I looked up recently because I wrote it down bi-weekly and it means both. It can
that's
the
so
same,
confusing.
right? The same word can go either way, and I was flabbergasted.
That's really confusing. But yeah, they used to be twice
it,
a month, but now they're just gonna be once a month. And if we feel like we can go back to the old schedule, we might. We're just trying not to like go too quickly and tire ourselves out. And
mm.
we're hoping to maybe do occasional like get together events and stuff too as well,
Oh, that's amazing.
because community is so important right now.
Yeah.
Being in community with each other, and kind of again going back to our discussion about like um cancellations and like
Hmm.
whatnot, and because community is so important, that's partially why too um avenues like this are important for showcasing people's projects that they're working on. Like,
Hmm. Hmm.
a network may have canceled that Black or queer or Latino thing, but there are going to be people that are going to make their own indie shit, and that's what we need to be supporting right now too.
Yeah.
Not necessarily that like indie is the future or anything, because it's not really sustainable right now.
Yeah, nobody has figured out how to do indie animation just yet. I mean, n no, people have figured it out. They've made
Yeah,
it, but most people haven't figured out how to make it work financially.
yeah,
That's the
like
biggest question.
I personally would not, like, I wouldn't work indie full time with a child that's not going to feed my baby.
Yeah. Hmm. It's already hard to enough to feed yourself, just yourself doing
Right,
indie. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, right.
But hey, if we ever figure it out, we'll let you know on Creative Block. That is um but you do have an idea for an indie pilot.
I do, and that's another thing that Waymond and I are working on. Waymond is co-executive producer and director on well, I'm, I guess, EP and showrunner. I don't know titles. um my pilot is called The Three Tomes, and it is about a black girl named Tammy Harris, and she is 17 years old, and she and her best friend Sia are in their last year of high school together. Or it is the summer before the last year of high school, and they want to make some memories. They decide to record a horror short film in a graveyard, and a book that Tammy uses to pretend to be a witch, while she's reading it, accidentally releases 13 spooky spirits from it, and they meet a real witch named Shirley, who the book was entrusted to, and because the book has bonded to Tammy, Tammy has no choice but to help put all that shit back with the witch and her best friend before it wreaks havoc on their Midwestern town. But they also have to avoid two vampire brothers that are after it as well. And there's a third vampire that wants to help them. He may or may not be bad, but he's cute, so I guess it's fine.
Ah, I love it. This is so cool. This is like kind of like Buffy vibes, especially like the like sexy vampire that's kind of like looking like it's so funny.
it's
That sounds
basic
cool.
it's basically what if I took the non-racist parts of Twilight, Card Captor Sakura and 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, and combined it. Or I guess if for people, if they don't know what Card Captors slash Card Captor Sakura is, I don't know, think Shaolin Showdown or Lilo and Stitch the series, where you're collecting things.
Hmm.
Just kind of combining that. I know it's not like the most robust, profound idea, but the three tomes kind of comes from the fact that, like, again, representation. I am a black femme that loves spooky shit and drama, melodrama, and romance, and I like vampires a lot. And I don't ever see people that look like me in any of that stuff. We
Hmm.
had First Kill on Netflix about cool lesbian vampire and cool a lesbian vampire hunter family.
Hmm.
You know, a vampire hunter and her family. And then they canceled it, and it was kind of schlock, but it was like schlock for the girlies and the gays, and I was here for it, and I'm like, all right, let's go. But then Netflix was like, nah, and I'm like, guys, why? Ah, let people have their schlock. It's okay.
I feel like, yeah, I wonder why it's so hard to do these supernatural shows because I mean there's a couple that really took off. Like I mean I guess Charmed and Supernatural are kind of like witchy-esque that are like big successes. I guess Wednesday potentially could be one of those where, with monsters, but it's not vampire centric. True Blood, I guess, was probably the one, the vampire show.
So True Blood I cannot take seriously because of that southern twang. I can't do it. I have attempted True Blood and I've laughed every time. I know people like it, but I can't. I
That's
can't do it.
so funny. That is so funny. What about Buffy? You've got to love Buffy.
I enjoy Buffy. I need to watch it again as an adult. I know there's some things that aren't great about it, especially in season 6 with Spike. Um,
Oh yeah, season 6 is like, in my opinion, my personal opinion, season 6 is not worth it. It's like, I mean, I will say I do love that it's like pretty much a shipping season, but that's all there is. That's the only juice there is in that season. So I do not recommend. I would say, honestly, I would say like probably season 3 or 4 is the good moment to like end it.
it's like, yeah, we pretend the show ended right there. Is that when Buffy dies?
I think, oh
And
well,
goes to hell, not really actually in heaven, and then she's mad she got resurrected.
dude, I remember. Okay, so I did really like that idea, and there's some really good scenes around that idea, but I do think it's not enough to carry the show. I do think that's around that time. Yeah, I think she got because she dies at the end of every season. Spoiler, she's always like, I'm out of here, or like
She's
I'm
like
like
Kenny
she
from
died.
South. She's like Kenny from South Park. Just dies.
Yeah, like I'm not even joking. At the end of every season, it's like a big dramatic, like, and she's gone. So it's not always death, but it's something that's like similar to character death because it's like, well, she's leaving town and you're never gonna see her again, or she dies, or this is the Buffy segment, everyone. But yeah, I do feel like yeah, that's around that time, like 5. That's around season 5. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. I will eventually have to like deep dive into Buffy like as an adult because like I consumed it a little bit, but it's weird. I consumed more Angel than Buffy when I was younger, but that was only because I had like a weird crush on Angel, and I liked the opening theme to Angel more than Buffy.
That's so funny. Okay, I have not watched Angel. I need to watch Angel. I've heard people tell me they like Angel better, but I just think Angel is so boring. He's such a boring character to me. All he does is sigh and look pretty and appear mysterious, and that's it.
Oh, I'm so sad.
Yes!
Oh, why won't Buffy love me?
I know so many things that I want to tell you, but I can't tell you them yet. Runs away, and it's like, stop! Why do I don't even say it at all.
See, the other good vampire girly stuff though is Interview with the Vampire. Both the movie with Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, and the new show, which is immaculate.
Ooh, I need to watch that.
Everybody needs to watch. Listen, if you like vampires, if you like black vampires, if you like drama, if you like the girlies fighting, if you like toxic relationships, if you like, oh god, I don't know, if you want like wonderful queer romance that is not like subtext, it is the text, then watch Interview with a Vampire. Like, you have to do
Not
it.
wait, where can we watch it?
It is on AMC,
Hmm.
and well, it's weird because it's on AMC Plus, which, sorry, gotta pay for another subscription, y'all. But the first season is available on Netflix if you have that. And if you have
Mm.
T-Mobile, you can get Netflix for free with your plan. Just putting that out there, guys. This is not sponsored by T-Mobile. I am
I,
not.
I was
T-Mobile
gonna
is
say.
T-Mobile's not telling me to tell you this. I'm just saying, if you don't want to pay for Netflix, then, and if you have T-Mobile, maybe look into your plan, and you could probably get it for free.
We should get T-Mobile to be one of our sponsors. Sometimes I'm like, I want to get a sponsor so bad, but it's really hard to get sponsorship if you're not like a nonprofit, or if you don't have like the status. Like, I mean, literally the way we're doing this podcast is just there's no structure to it for anybody listening. It's just a bunch of people hanging out on Zoom, and we record it, and that's it. But so it makes it harder when you're just doing it that way to reach out to sponsors. Did you ever get sponsorship for Black and Animated?
I think we got reached out to a sponsor, but we didn't want to do it.
Oh,
but
wow.
but I don't even know who the sponsor was, and I don't know if it was legit. Like, I don't know if it was like a weird NFT thing, or no,
Um,
NFTs weren't a thing back then. I don't know. All I remember is that, like, we looked at the email, we were like, "What?" and then we ignored it.
that is so funny.
That's
uh,
kind of all I remember about it. But yeah, I love vampires. I like vampire lore, and the Three Tomes is very much just sort of a self-indulgent kind of thing that I've created. I used to be afraid of writing, uh,
mhm.
honestly, but I took a writing course with Patricia Violetto. She offers
She
write.
is amazing. Yes. I've
Yeah,
taken the pilot writing class with her as well. She is so
yeah.
cool.
Listen, if y'all can take one of her classes, do it. Man, I'm not scared of words no more. In taking that class, I was able to basically like figure out, writing structure a bit better. I mean, I also did it too because I was like, you know what, this will make my boarding stronger if I knowing story structure just a bit more intimately.
Mhm.
And it has helped a lot. It's one of those things, kind of like how I mentioned earlier, that, like, if you're an animator, it makes you stronger, or how, like, me being in production made me a stronger board artist. Knowing writing also can helps a lot too, I feel
I
like.
agree. I feel like it also helps if you want to eventually go into directing, because you do have to track story, and you want to make sure that the boards highlight the story, and that everything makes sense, and that the audience doesn't get lost. And a big way to do that is to be able, while just reading the script, to kind of really see where are the important beats, how you set up stuff and pay them off visually, and in a way to really prop up the writing. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's do a round of really quick questions.
Yeah.
Let's do them really, really fast. So, from our patron Puzzle Glum, what's the most valuable advice you've ever received for your career, or advice you would give yourself at the start of your career?
Oh, Jesus. Some of the most valuable advice that I've gotten, I guess, would be like, some of the most valuable advice that I have received in my career, I guess, would be something that I mentioned earlier, is that, you have to network across. Like, don't just focus on the people that are like high level or showrunners and things like
Mm,
that. Like, you can't really put the cart before the horse. And if you, I don't know, if you're like trying to be a character designer, but you're only talking to showrunners because you have like your OCs and you've got, I don't know, a binder full of all the things that you want, and you're like, I want to make a show. That's not really gonna happen. You need to relax a little bit and like network across or with the people that are doing directly the thing that you want to do. You could talk to a showrunner, sure, but you need to kind of be a bit more realistic, you know?
Hmm. That's great. From YouTube, Hudson B. I'll just call you Hudson B. I see you always ask questions and they're
What
really
up?
good, but it's a very complicated username. So Hudson B asks, what is the best season? Summer, fall, spring, or winter?
Best season is probably spring. Oh man, it's either spring or fall. I say spring because it's not too hot, not too cold, and I don't know, the sakura blossoms are in bloom in Japan and it's pretty cool. And fall because Japan again, I went to Japan in the
Mm,
fall for my honeymoon and we went to Kyoto, and seeing the fall leaves, breathtaking.
it's
And
so
over at Fushimi Inari Shrine, beautiful, immaculate.
on Twitter, we have two questions from Leo Hero Sesson. They ask, what's something you would want screenwriters to keep in mind for production? And then I just went to Animation Y'all in Nashville. Thoughts on animation expanding beyond LA and New York into other states?
Well, animation absolutely should expand to other states because if it does, I don't have to live here anymore. Because I tell people all the time, my black ass would not be in California if I didn't have to move, but the industry is here.
Very,
like like we really need to, like, I know it's like tax incentive stuff, things like that, but it's really expensive to live here. Ah! I could be owning a house right now if I didn't live here, and that makes me sad.
yeah, I think about
But
this all the time, dude. I'm like,
yeah,
ugh, why are we here? It's so expensive. Yeah, no,
but
agreed.
but that's also assuming we keep our salaries that are still out here, which I don't know, we might not. Depending
Yeah.
on like how like stuff translates to different states. And I guess what was the other question about screenwriters?
Yeah, what should they keep in mind for production?
Well, something that I think a screenwriter should keep in mind when writing scripts for shows and whatnot is it's pretty basic, but it's something that I see a lot. Please don't write 50 characters in one moment. Or if you have like an action sequence, please don't write and then they fight and then keep
Yeah.
going. Maybe be
Ah,
a little more specific about what you want. Because if you write and then they fight and that's it, the board artist is going to have to draw that, and then that's probably a good amount of drawings. So just trying to be specific about what it is that's happening in your script to help production out for like counting assets, and to help your board artists out so they don't kill themselves while drawing all of it.
so true. The millions of characters, that is so true. Oh my God. If we can have, if we could have only two characters on screen at all time, that would be so great. So we do have the titular question that comes at the end of every episode.
Oh god, we're at the end already. I feel like I've been yapping about nothing. I'm so sorry, y'all.
No, that was great. I think we like got a really good look into what it was like to do Black and Animated, how you got your job and network. And I think that was I think it's a very all-encompassing episode.
Yeah.
And so do you experience creative block? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
I cry. No. I mean, yes, I do. I cry. Ah, geez. Experiencing creative block. It's really interesting because, like, I feel as if I go through periods of not drawing for myself at all for like maybe weeks or months at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I draw again, and I feel like that moment of like Hannibal Buress from Eric Andre show where he's looking at his hands and it's like with like overlaid and you just looking like, wait, I'm like, wait a minute, I can draw and it looks better. What? I feel like it's kind of like Kiki's Delivery Service. I feel like when I'm experiencing creative block, I just don't draw.
Mm.
And I know that might sound kind of like weird, but sometimes I think it's kind of like a subconscious thing where my brain is like, stop. You need to stop for a minute and
Mm-hmm.
give yourself a break, especially with art becoming like when art is like something that was your hobby and now it's become your career. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the joy, I mean, I can't speak for everybody, but I know for me, sometimes the joy of drawing gets taken away. Like, I don't even want to look at a drawing. I don't want to look at my Cintiq. I don't want to look at my iPad or my
Mm-hmm.
sketchbook. And I take a break from it and just sort of like chill. I don't know, read a manga. Now, like, hang out with my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or like watch a movie, hang out with my husband. And then when I come back to it, and I usually come back to it when I'm feeling kind of like icky, where I feel the feeling of like, oh damn, I haven't drawn in a while. This feels weird, and I just like pick up my sketchbook, not my Cintiq, because you can't forget to draw like on paper. Pick up my sketchbook, and then I just doodle something without really thinking about it. Nothing crazy. I ignore the feeling of like you have to post. I try to ignore that because
Mm-hmm.
that also like traps people, I think, where it's like everything you make you feel like you have to post it, and it's like no, you can draw for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
If I just free flow draw and not really think about it, it's usually something silly and it just feels really nice. I can draw actually here for you, like intern cat. I know that she was kind of a nice way to get out of some creative block. And
Oh, is that one of your own characters?
yeah, intern cat is well, she's it's weird. She's me, but I don't really like cats like
That's
that.
funny. That's funny.
And she basically is a intern that works at a graphic design studio and is always stressed out, always has tired lines underneath her eyes, and she lives with her boyfriend dog, and I always draw her when I'm feeling that block or if I'm feeling stressed. Just an easy doodle to get her out there. She carried me through the pandemic and the days when I wasn't working in animation pretty hard. Like intern cat was always there for me, and her and boyfriend dog.
I love that. I do think like OCs are so great, like having your own personal characters and you give them your like little stories and like problems or like they're like the perfect escapism. Like because if it's like you're on the show or and you're drawing something that you don't like to draw, then you have your own characters that you can make them do the thing you want to draw.
No, literally, like it definitely is like a nice escapism, and yeah, like getting through that block of creativity, I think for me is when I take a break away from art and then I come back to it, and that's sort of how I get through it. And it's weird. It's almost as if like I go into a block without realizing it. There have been times I know where I've attempted to draw and I'm just like, this looks like dog shit. What's happening? But it's because I'm thinking too hard about it.
Hmm.
And my husband has told me before that like my best drawings are when I'm not thinking really deeply. I just do it.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because he's right. Like my doodles when I'm just free flowing and going, just doing whatever, those are the ones that I kind of have the most fun with. And I feel like those are the ones that help me get out of slumps a bit
Mm.
more. And I don't know, I feel like now too, something that has been helping me get through creativity blocks is just looking at my baby.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love
that
that actually.
that yeah, that's definitely another thing. And I know I didn't quite get into it as much because I know we're approaching the end, but
Hmm.
having a child while working in this very volatile industry is
Hmm.
very scary, but it is possible. I mean, I'm literally doing it right now, and there's honestly a lot more people around our age than I thought that have children that are like in their late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s to
Hmm.
early 40s. Like there are a lot more millennial parents in animation than I realized. And we've all, well, not all, but like a lot of us, like I've since becoming pregnant, I've met a good chunk of them, and having that network of parents or like other birthing persons that work in animation has been so helpful, especially as a transplant from another state, because my family isn't here. My family's 3,000 miles away.
Hmm.
And not having my mom around to be able to come see her grandbaby pretty easily or give us a bit of a break, it's tough. It's really
Hmm.
tough. And in this economy,
Yeah.
not being able to like have a home, like just being a renter, that's also tough too. But we persevere, we make it work. And I don't know, my baby is like my greatest treasure right now.
Mm.
And she is my whole world. And I do animation for myself because it was my dream to work in animation, but I also do it now for her because I want to be able to work on stories that she can watch when she's a little bit older.
Hmm.
And I want to be able to draw for her. I want to be able to provide for her.
Hmm.
And I want to make my baby happy. And I'm getting a little emotional because I love my baby.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's really sweet. I mean, I'm getting
Yeah.
teary-eyed too. I'm like, that is such a sweet
Yeah.
thing. Oh, that is so loving and like
Yeah.
it's we were talking earlier about like how like there is a cloud of maybe hopelessness kind of hanging over this year, but hearing you talk so with so much joy and love about having a family that, it also kind of goes to show like we'll be okay. I don't know. It's really sweet.
I'm glad, I guess.
No, and it's important because I feel like we don't really have a lot of people on the show who talk. We've had a couple of guests in the past who've talked about being dads. I remember maybe Grover Tunes was an episode that we really talked about parenting. And I'm trying to remember if we had any other guests, but I do think that it is a question that comes up a lot for people in animation. It's such an intense job. A lot of us feel like maybe we have to make a choice between being a parent and keeping this career. So it's so nice to hear that you're able to do both and find joy in both. Keep like doing this career and having a family.
It's definitely not easy, I'll tell you that. Like,
Hmm.
by I don't know, by the grace of God, like we are able to make it work. I know it's not for everyone, and if you think a baby's cute and you're like, "Oh, I want to have a baby," really think about it because it is a lot. It's a lot. I'm gonna tell you that right now. But tell you, it's a lot. But if it is something that you and your partner, whoever's listening, you want to do, then go for it. If you talk about it, you make plans. And I guess it's important too, I guess, to also know that, like, I feel like no matter how much you prepare, you're never really ready. And that's something that I've come to terms with, that like
Mm-hmm.
it is, babies are gonna do what babies are gonna do. They're gonna do whatever they want. Like, my baby is already flipping onto her back and we're about to start solids, and I'm like, I thought that shit didn't happen till 6 months. So I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, you can't plan anything. You have to just go with the flow always.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Or like my baby will sleep for only 30 minutes during the day, but might sleep for 6 hours at night. And other parents are like, man, I wish I had that. My baby only sleeps for like an hour at night or every 2 hours, but they sleep all day. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Every baby's different. It's
Yeah.
and it's really difficult. But when you see their face, when you see that little baby's face, I have. So I have mentioned repeatedly on this podcast that I have ADHD, and I am unmedicated right now. I also have anxiety disorder, and a lot of shit makes me nervous, and I do talk therapy. My medication used to help my anxiety, but because of pumping for breast milk and whatnot, I can't take it. So I'm raw dogging life right now. And there's a lot of anxiety with raising a child, especially one so young, especially in the current climate of the world right now. And
Yes.
especially with that baby being black. My
Mm.
baby is mixed, but my baby is still a black child, and that's also another level of like things to consider. And despite all of my fears, my anxieties, random shit that my brain is yelling at me about that may or may not happen, when I look at her face, I'm gonna tell you, none of that matters.
Mm.
All that matters is the little bean in front of you with their goofy grin blowing spit bubbles. That is pure unconditional love. That is pure joy. And I just love my baby. Sorry.
I thought
I love my baby.
this is so cute and a great way to end the podcast. I think it's like I like ending it on such a positive note. Thank you so much for being our guest and sharing your story. And thanks to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for questions and drawing prompts. Huge thanks for editor Clemens for editing the podcast and making us sound smart. Marco for helping us produce the show, and Nabuka for creating the short clips we've been putting out. If you love our show, you can support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. Click the link in the description of this episode to follow Bree on all of her socials. And you can find our Patreon page in our description too. Another great way to support the podcast is to like, comment, and subscribe. I've been your host, V. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.